This happened during the closing of 2020. I was working as a graphic designer for a publishing company, and the office instructed most employees to start working from home. I live alone in a small house, and it is known to be a quiet and safe environment. At least I thought so. It was a hot summer night. I was working to a tight deadline. My house has a good-sized living room and an open kitchen. My bedroom is upstairs. There is a guest bedroom next to it, which I actually use as my workspace. My boyfriend and I were going to live together. That's why we rented this house, but before we officially moved in, there was a coronavirus pandemic, and I had to live alone in that house. There was another middle-aged couple living next door to my house. The couple was always fighting. Every night a woman could be heard yelling at her husband. Many people were angry with this family, but no one wanted to confront them. I hoped that everyone would stay out of fights like I did, but it was clear that staying out of trouble was not the answer. On Saturday night, I was talking to my boyfriend in the living room, and it was clear that we were both upset that we couldn't see each other. Outside, it had been cloudy all afternoon, and now a storm was approaching. I was surprised that the couple next door was extremely quiet. Usually, they shout at each other in the afternoon, but that day it was very quiet. I finished my phone call with my boyfriend and headed to the kitchen to prepare dinner, and within 5 minutes the rain stopped and it started to get really heavy. Suddenly there was lightning, and it surprised me a little bit. I was chopping vegetables and even the electricity went out. Being alone in my new home during the storm was enough to make me nervous. I lit a candle and started to look for more when I heard a knock at the door. As I was debating whether to open the door or not, there was another flash of lightning so intense that it almost numbed my ears. I approached the door and asked in a hesitant voice, "Who is it?" No one answered, but I heard another knock. I said loudly, "Who is it?" "Ma'am, I live next door. My husband is not well. Could you please open the door?" I recognized the man's voice. I had heard the same man yelling at my wife several times. I opened the door, and with a flash of lightning, the man's face appeared. The man was literally sweating. I could see from his face that something serious had happened. I asked him anxiously what had happened. "My wife is not well. I need to get her some medicine. I can't leave the dog home alone. Can you take care of the dog until I get back?" I thought for a moment, but the man wasn't asking for much, so I couldn't say no. I agreed, and the man brought the dog. To be honest, it was a really cute dog, but for some reason the dog was acting strange. Every time the man tried to hold the dog would run away from him. I was surprised because it's not every day you see a pet acting against its owner. It was clear that the dog didn't like the man for some reason. I left the dog inside the house and locked the door and watched the man walk away. What worried me the most was that he had left his sick wife alone and was madly worried about the dog, even though the dog hated him. I didn't think too much about it and went back to cooking. The storm was getting stronger and stronger. There must have been a big short circuit that left the whole area without electricity. I finished the food and fed the dogs. Now my bedroom window looks into the bedroom window of that man and his wife. I carried the candles upstairs and stood by the window. The house was dark, but there was lightning in the bedroom. I could see the bed and someone lying on it. Probably his wife, I thought. My curiosity was always pretty low, so I went straight to the bed and put the dog down next to her. I don't remember exactly what time it was, but I heard a strange noise that woke me up. I got out of bed and went to the window and saw two people standing in the neighbor's bedroom. The storm had already stopped, but the electricity hadn't come back on yet. I heard voices and I thought it was a man and a woman. The man came back and I thought it must be him and his wife. I looked at my watch and saw that it was 10 p.m. I was planning to leave early the next day to meet my boyfriend, so I thought it would be easier if I took the dog back then. Just as I was about to go and wake the dog, something strange happened in the couple's bedroom. A man and a woman had taken a third person out of the room. I went to the window to see more clearly, and just then the electricity came on and the lights came on in the room. At that moment, I felt sick to my stomach with fear. The man was indeed my husband, but the woman I was talking to was not his wife. It was a woman I had never seen before, a complete stranger. They both had people on their shoulders. I knew immediately that the third person was the man's wife. Her throat had been cut badly, but her blood had dried. It was clear from the bodies that they had been dead for several hours. They didn't see me looking at them, but suddenly the dog barked and the man looked directly at me. When our eyes met, he ran out of the house. I didn't know what to do at that moment, but in fear and panic I ran downstairs too. I thought this man had realized that I knew his secret. I knew that if this man caught me, I would never get out of here alive. I was a witness to his wife's corpse. When I reached the front door, I heard the man banging on it. In a loud but panicked voice, he said, "I'm not going to let you in. What he wants now is to open the door and shut me up like his wife." I told him I would call the police and that I knew everything about the situation. The man slammed my door even harder and replied, "Why don't you give my dog back and mind your own business? Now open this door." I double-locked the door so the man couldn't get in. Then I called 911 and made the call. I panicked, but as soon as I hung up the phone, I heard footsteps running out my window. I saw a man and a woman jump into a car and speed away. When the police arrived, I couldn't see them anywhere, but they found my wife's body lying on the bedroom floor. While the police were investigating, the whole story came out. The man was having an affair with the woman I saw that night. They had planned to kill her and dispose of her body without anyone knowing. So the man made up a story that his wife was sick. He must have wanted to use me as an alibi for leaving the house that night. He would come back at midnight and quietly dispose of her body. Then he would come to me to get his dog back and say that his wife had left him or something. And then he would move out after he had planted the idea in my mind that he didn't know where she was. During this period of the blockade, people rarely left their homes to look for their wives. If I hadn't been so worried about my dog, his plan would have worked. My boyfriend finally moved in the next day. To be honest, I was afraid to live next door to the house where my neighbor was murdered. The police are still looking for the killer today, and I only hope they catch him soon. I live in the UK, and this happened to me a month ago. I ordered food from a local Indian restaurant on a Friday night. I was with a friend, we were watching a movie, and he was staying at home. We were sitting in the living room, and I had turned on the lights to let the delivery driver know we were home. The TV was on, and then I heard a knock on the door. It wasn't the front door, it was the back door. I went to the front door and opened it. Of course, no one was there. My friend told me to check the back door, so I did, and there was a delivery driver standing there. I found it very strange. To get into my backyard, you have to walk from the street to the back door and go under the courtyard. I found it very strange that he did that. Now, what you see when you enter the street is the front door. The backyard clearly looks like a backyard. The number of the house is exactly visible on the front. The driver is a woman, and she seemed really cheerful as she took my money and placed my order. I told my friend, and he agreed that it was very strange. We sat down and ate our food, but soon forgot about it. About 2 hours later, as I was closing the curtains in the living room, I saw a black car parked outside the house. I didn't recognize the car, so I strained my eyes and saw the delivery driver sitting in his car, looking straight ahead. I called my friend, and we both just stared. I was horrified, but I couldn't call the police. What could I say? I mean, he had just used my back door, and now he was sitting in the car. My friend told me to lock the door and ignore him, but I thought about it. No, I have to do something. I put on my slippers and went outside. I approached his car and banged on the window. Suddenly, he put his car in the back and drove away. My friend was watching from the living room window, and when I came back into the house, he ran into the hallway. We got goosebumps and decided to call takeaway and report him. The woman who answered the phone didn't seem very interested. She said she was very sorry to hear that we had not had a good experience and that she would let the manager know. She felt like she had kicked us to the curb, but at the same time, the driver hadn't really done anything wrong. Being weird is not a crime, but I am always a little wary that the driver will come back one day. I don't know what he was trying to do or why he parked his car in front of my house for a while after giving me my order, but something about the situation felt completely strange. My friend and I slept on separate sofas in the living room with a couple of blankets on top of us. We were both very surprised by this encounter. I haven't ordered from that takeaway since then, But to be honest, I rarely eat out, maybe twice a year. My friend and I talked to other people who told us that the girl might be on drugs or something. I think that's a possibility, but if so, how could she drive? And why did she go around the back of our house, into the backyard, and knock on our door? This story might not sound scary to a lot of people, but it's very strange and it's really frustrating because we don't know what she was trying to do.